One of the most disturbing things about the rise of social media, and there are many things we could talk about. We could talk about the amplification of just hostility and friction between individuals and all that. But of course, one of the most disturbing things about social media has been the rise of its use to spread far-right memes, to even in the case of the Rohingya, to encourage what have been described as hate crimes. So it is a matter of urgent social importance that we understand how Facebook, for example, is handling right-wing memes in general, for that matter, and yet at the same time, we need to worry about the fact that correcting whatever problems may have arisen could, in certain cases, make those problems worse. All of which is a long-winded way of introducing our next guest, who has done some, I think, very valuable research in this area. Natalie Martinez is a researcher at Media Matters, and I recently read a piece of hers with the headline at MediaMatters.org. The headline was, "Under Facebook's new algorithm, conservative meme pages are outperforming all political news pages," which is odd given the mood of the country. But first of all, Natalie, thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me on.
Secondly, just briefly, if you would, tell us what your research was, what you looked at, and what you found.
Definitely. So this piece is building off of an earlier study we published last week, which was looking at political pages and how their engagement had changed since Facebook began announcing these algorithm changes in mid-January. So we looked at left-leaning, right-leaning, and what we called non-aligned pages, which generally meant mainstream media, local news outlets, that sort of thing. And all these pages fell under three specific criteria. They had over 500,000 page likes. They were regularly posting about political news, and they were posting at least 5 times a week, every single week of this study, which was a 6-month study from January 1st to July 1st.
So they were all, just to interrupt you for a second, so they were all major presences on Facebook with major followings. And just so for anyone who might not know what those algorithm changes were, this was when Facebook, and correct me if I'm wrong, Natalie, but this is when Facebook said it was going to try to dampen down the political intensity by trying to direct people's feeds away from political material and more towards human interaction with friends and family, right? Is that more or less right?
Yeah, that's basically correct. There were 2 main ways they were trying to do that. The first was to reduce the amount of content from publishers, media brands, that sort of thing that was popping up on average users' feeds. And that announcement was made in mid-January. And right before that, they made an announcement that they were trying to reduce the amount of what they call engagement bait content and pages, which are basically these usually memes, sometimes videos, that request engagement. So they say like and share if you agree with this, or vote in the comments below, that sort of thing. And so our study was looking at how these changes were actually affecting pages. And they were also, a big part of the study was also coming out of these allegations from conservative sites and from Republicans in Congress who were alleging that Facebook was censoring conservatives through these algorithms without any sort of evidence outside of anecdotal evidence. So we wanted to actually look and see how political pages were being affected. And what we found in the study were 2 major findings. One, that partisan pages were performing the same throughout the study, left and right wing. We looked at this thing we called interaction rate, which was essentially how many interactions was every post from a page getting with respect to the size of the page, so the number of page likes. And what we found was that right-leaning and left-leaning pages were receiving virtually the same interaction rate on average during the 6-month study, and they were severely outperforming these non-aligned pages. So partisan pages in general just performing way better than non-partisan pages. As part of this study, though, which led to the report you mentioned, we looked at what specific type of content was performing the best, and using these interaction rates, which gives us a way of looking at engagement with respect to the size of a page. And what we found was that the highest performing content was actually images posted from these right-leaning pages. And for my own research, my research predominantly deals with memes on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, Instagram. So I have a familiarity with that ecosystem. And I wanted to do a deeper dive in how these specific pages that are frequently posting images are doing, especially since they were the ones who should have been targeted by Facebook's algorithm. And in this study, this follow-up study, what we found was not only were they outperforming all partisan pages, they were on average they had 500,000 fewer followers than right-leaning pages and almost 1 million fewer followers than left-leaning and non-aligned pages, this sample we looked at. And
well,
they were...
wait a minute, I'm just confused for a second. So I just want to make sure I understand you correctly. So when you say they were outperformed, we are talking about right-leaning pages, right?
We're talking about a specific subset now of right-leaning pages. These 26 meme pages we identified from our monitoring that were also part of this study. But we compared it with a larger sample of right-leaning pages from the original study. And what we found is they had almost twice as much engagement, raw numbers, not even looking at interaction rates, which give us those numbers compared to the page size, but they were just completely obliterating all other partisan pages. And they had over twice as many interactions as non-aligned pages, even though they had on average 1 million fewer page likes.
So let me, I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, but it's so technical, and I want to make sure our audience and I understand this correctly. So let me summarize what I've heard so far, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong, okay? And again, we're talking with Natalie Martinez, a researcher at Media Matters. So basically, conservatives went out and were claimed that Facebook was censoring them somehow compared to a left-leaning or more liberal pages. You studied right and left. You found out that wasn't true. Overall, they're basically about the same. But there's this subset of right-wing pages that's called that do memes, images, and that kind of thing. People might know, you know, Pepe the Frog and all that. But basically, in general, so the far right really likes these image memes. But anyway, so there are this subset of right-wing pages that does these images, and they're in terms of engagement, they're way ahead of anybody else, left or right, even and perhaps because of the fact, but certainly even after Facebook supposedly took a step to fix the problem. Have I summarized it pretty accurately or not?
Absolutely, yeah, that's exactly it. And what the other disturbing element of that, especially looking at Facebook's algorithm, is that we found that these pages were drastically improving since the algorithm effects took place. And part of it was that we can't pinpoint exactly why they were improving in the 6-month study, because Facebook's relatively non-transparent about their algorithm and the way they change it. They kind of dumb down their language in a lot of these press releases and blogs on their pages in order to essentially not give us the specifics about how they're combating false information, extremism, and engagement bait, which they say is a priority. But we know that in this very minor behavior alteration that these right-leaning pages did, which was posting fewer links, they were able to bypass whatever algorithm changes that Facebook is supposedly implemented, or at least that's our idea. So essentially...
So here's my reaction to that, and you tell me what you think, Natalie Martinez, but my reaction to that is, okay, Facebook, you very politely said Facebook is kind of, you know, BSing people, or really not coming clean about what exactly they're doing. Maybe BSing is a strong way to put it, although I'm still going to stick with it. But now, as a result of this change, image pages are like killing it. Right-wing image pages. It's whereas pages with links are not. And I draw two conclusions from that. One is that these right-wing pages with the images figured out right away how to game Facebook's algorithm change. And two, what bothers me about it is that at least when there's a link, it may link to some fake news site or whatever, but at least if there's a link, there's probably some written content behind whatever it is they're trying to say. So I actually think when it comes to the dumbing down of the discourse, this might be a step in the wrong direction. What do you think of those, what I just said?
I think it's important when we talk about these meme pages, they're not just posting images. It's like the first thing I kind of want to clarify there. They're usually connected to these fake news, hyper-partisan extremist sites that are posting those kinds of links that you're talking about. And their behavior modification was essentially to look less like a clickbait page. So they're posting less of these links and are essentially flying under Facebook's radar now, is our assumption. I totally get what you're saying with the idea that like at least links give you more content than images, but I'm not sure I would agree per se that it's that these link pages are better. They're essentially they're always connected. If that makes sense, yeah.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. Thanks for that. So you know, you've got some samples in your post of these images, and you know, look, I'm not maybe the best target market for social media, but they all seem kind of dumb to me. You know, I mean, besides the fact that the sentiments are hateful, this does not strike me as elevating the discourse. Boy, you know, with Chuck and Nancy, meaning Schumer and Pelosi. If you think they should lose their salary due to the shutdown, like and share, sounds like a plan, exclamation point. You know, it's not like, you know, my idea of enlightened political debate, but all of that aside, I don't know, what do you think? Is this a sort of dumbing down process that we're seeing here, or am I just making the same point that you just disproved?
I don't think it's a dumbing down process. I think they've found a way to efficiently touch base on this larger far-right conservative conversation and talking points that have been going on. So like, it's important to remember when somebody's engaging on Facebook, that's not the only place they're getting media from. People who are engaging with these far-right meme pages are likely watching Fox at night. They're probably listening to Hannity and Rush on the radio. These are really small points that are just reinforcing what they hear in these longer form, more detailed narratives. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's dumbing down, even though it is like a much more simplified, like a lot of these memes are essentially just touching talking point, anti-Islam, racist, conspiracy, Clinton crime kind of talking points, but there is a larger narrative that's behind them, and a lot of the people engaging with this content know that narrative.
All right, so they've already been dumbed down by Fox News. Okay, point well taken. Now, so let me ask you this then, because we have a couple minutes left. My other reaction to all of this is, okay, well then those of us who are on the left, or certainly not part of the right, we've just got to get smarter. Unless and until Facebook changes its algorithm again, it seems like the left has got to start doing the same thing. Fewer links, more images, and then maybe left-leaning Facebook pages can catch up. Does that make sense from an analytical point of view?
I've always said I think Facebook's a phenomenal tool for the right to organize on. It's not necessarily built for the left, though. A lot of this discussion with Facebook and with hate speech conspiracies on Facebook has centered around why isn't Facebook banning them? But really, Facebook is profiting just as much from this content that goes viral as the political operatives and people behind it. So when we look at Facebook as an organizing tool for progressives, I think I wouldn't say we should necessarily mimic the right, because what the right's doing is problematic and is straight up wrong in a lot of levels. So I think it's kind of a complicated question of how Facebook can be efficiently used by progressives. Definitely wouldn't say copy the right, though. It's just not made for us in that way.
Yeah, that's an interesting answer, because of course I wasn't meaning copying the right in terms of, hateful or
of course,
emotion-driven or any of those things, but it may be that the rights message is just so, I'm trying to think of the right way to put this, so tailor-made for kind of knee-jerk, reactive, anger, momentary flash
Definitely.
of emotion. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, that clickbait's made for reactionary politics, basically. Yeah, and that's why the right thrives so much on Facebook. It's a clickbait platform.
All right. Well, that is a great analysis. So, listen, Natalie, I think this was a fascinating study that you did. I really enjoyed it. And what are you working on next? Do you know?
Yeah, so next we're kind of doing a follow-up to that, going into some of these pages and showing the long-form narratives that these meme pages are producing, like from this very extremist anti-Islam, anti-immigrant rhetoric to some of this more non-partisan content that they use to kind of engage with both sides. So we're looking at all these different types of content they're using and how they're reacting to current events with them.
Well, that's great work. I'm glad you're doing it. I'm glad the whole team is doing it at MediaMatters.org. And I'm glad you came on the program. Natalie Martinez from Media Matters.
Thank you.